Welcome time travelers and welcome new time travelers. As always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning about history, one event at a time, then don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to start out in 1684 when the Toleration Act was passed by the British Parliament, granting freedom of worship to nonconformists and allowing them their own place of worship and their own teachers and preachers. Moving on to 1822, when part of the Latin American Wars of Independence from Spanish rule, the Battle of Pachaca took place on the lower slopes of Cerro Pacheco and ended in victory for South American rebels. 8 years later, in 1830, the first line of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad opened with the maiden voyage of Peter Cooper's locomotive, Tom Thumb. Moving on to 1856, when a group of abolitionists led by John Brown launched a nighttime raid on pro-slavery settlement at Pottawatomie Creek in Kansas Territory, during which 5 men were murdered. In a brilliant feat of 19th century engineering, the Brooklyn Bridge, spanning the East River from Brooklyn to Manhattan Island in New York City, opened on this day in 1883, designed by civil engineer John Augustus Roebling. That actually makes me think of the YouTube short John Augustus. Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked. Anyway, 1928 is when Irish author William Trevor, who is noted for his wiry and often macabre short stories and novels, was born in County Cork. 10 years later, in 1938, Carl McGee of Oklahoma was granted a U.S. patent for the first coin-controlled parking meter, which became very prominent in the streets of around the country. 1939 is when Blue Peter won the English Derby at Epsom Downs. Fox Cub came in second. Moving on to 1941, when American singer and songwriter Bob Dylan, who was hailed as the Shakespeare of his generation, was born in Duluth, Minnesota. In 1945, 4,500 tons of incendiary bombs were dumped over Tokyo by a fleet of 550 super fortresses. 6 years later, in 1951, in the U.S. nuclear program, the fourth test of Operation Greenhouse was conducted, resulting in the first proof of principle test of a booster designed in nuclear fusion. Now let's make a stop in 1956, when the first Eurovision Song Contest was held in Lugano, Switzerland, and it became a hugely popular annual event. 6 years before the turn of the century, in 1994, 4 men were convicted in the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center in New York City, where each were sentenced to 240 years in prison. The terrorist attack had killed 6 people and injured some 1,000. The turn of the century in 2000, Israel ended its 18-year occupation of South Lebanon, withdrawing the last of its troops from its self-declaration security zone. 5 years later, in 2005, the movie Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which opened worldwide on May 21st, broke box office records in the United Kingdom as well as the US for the first 4 days of its run. And finally, 4 years later, in 2009, in Skid's Temple in Vienna, several sheiks attacked 2 visiting sect leaders with knives and a handgun, killing one and igniting a fight. Later, in apparent reaction, fighting among Scythes erupts in Jodhpur, India. And with that, we return to 2024 and our current history. Until next time.